Assalamu alaikum. Today we're going to continue our lesson about sexual reproduction in plants. We learned before that the flower is the reproductive organ responsible for the flowering plant's reproduction. The main parts of the flower are stamens, pistil, sepals, and petals. We also learned that the stamen is the main reproductive organ of the flower. It consists of the anther and the filament. The anther produces pollen grains, which enclose sperm cells, which are considered as male sex cells. The pistil is the female reproductive organ of the flower. It consists of the stigma, style, and the ovary. The ovary contains ovules, which enclose egg cells, which are the female sex cells. The stages of sexual reproduction in flowering plants are pollination, pollen tube formation, fertilization, fruit formation, and finally planting seeds. Now let's correct worksheet 11 together. The male reproductive cell is the sperm cell, and the female reproductive cell is the egg cell. The flower is pollinated when at least one pollen grain falls on its stigma. The pollen tube is the structure that transports the sperm cells to the ovule. The embryo was before the fertilized egg cell. The seed was the fertilized ovule, and the fruit was an ovary. This type of reproduction is sexual since it needs the presence of a male and a female reproductive cells, which are the sperm cell and the egg cell. Now let's summarize together the stages of flowering plants reproduction. Pollination. Pollination happens when pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the stigma. Pollen tube formation. The pollen grain forms a pollen tube that grows into the ovule. Fertilization. The sperm cell and the egg cell unite together inside the ovule, forming a fertilized egg cell. Fruit formation. The fertilized egg cell becomes a seed's embryo, or simply embryo. The fertilized ovule becomes a seed. The ovary becomes a fruit or a coat. Finally, the last stage is planting seeds. If the seeds are planted in suitable conditions, the embryo will grow, producing a new flowering plant. The egg cell after fertilization changes into a seed's embryo, or simply embryo. The ovule changes into a seed, and the ovary changes into a fruit or a coat. Let's review the information we learned. Pollen grains produced by the anthers of a stamen are transferred to the stigma of a pistil. The pollen grain grows a pollen tube inside the style. The pollen tube is the structure that grows from the pollen grain after it falls on the stigma. The pollen tube transports the sperm cell to the ovule. The sperm cell and the egg cell unite inside the ovule, forming a fertilized egg cell. The ovule is then called fertilized ovule because it's where fertilization happens. The fruit then is formed from the ovary. The seeds are formed from fertilized ovules, and the embryo of each seed is formed from the fertilized egg cell. When the seeds are planted under suitable conditions, the embryo will produce a new flowering plant. Now let's pause the video to give the name of each stage of reproduction in plants. This stage is pollen tube formation. As we can see, the pollen tube is formed. This stage is planting seeds. We can see the embryo of the seed is producing the new flowering plant. This is fruit formation. A seed and a fruit are produced. This is pollination. Pollen grains are transferred by an agent, which is an insect, bee. This is fertilization, union of a sperm cell and egg cell inside the ovule. Now let's pause the video again to label this figure. Before fertilization, it's an ovule. After fertilization, it's a seed. Before fertilization, this is the egg cell. After fertilization, it will change into an embryo. That's all about flowering plants reproduction. Thank you for your watching.